That tree over there could be really interesting during autumn. Open by itself. Ooh, give me a lot of fog. It's a nice fall color and that could be a stunning image. So as I mentioned when I was going to eat breakfast, this area is very close to me, and as I mentioned in a previous video, I'm exploring areas which are closer to home because of the increase in gas prices and given the limited amount of time that I have. And I've been driving past this location many a times when I was driving to other locations. And I've always been thinking that I should stop and explore it since it's so close to home. But I never did. And now I did. Now I am here. And it is very beautiful. So I framed up what I think is kind of an interesting composition. It's a bit hectic and lacks a bit of order in a sense, but the light I think is the thing that is structuring up this composition. Light is the element that is creating the structure, let's say. And let me just show you how it actually looks. And if you can see, the main interest in the composition is these grouping of trees in the background there. And as I said, the light is structuring the scene. And what I mean by that is you can see the sunlight hitting on the forest floor there, and it is also hitting the trees behind there and casting these shadows towards the foreground of the image. And that is what creates a certain leading element through the composition, through the scene. And then I played around a little bit with how close I was to the scene. I tried to be further forward and I tried a vertical just to play a lot more with the shadows. But what I found was that stepping even further back so that I could zoom in more with the lens and thus compress the scene more, I could include more of the sides here, and that created a more wholesome scene, and I could get more of the vision or more of the complete sense of what I was seeing before me. And then still these shadows were working great as a leading element through the scene. And yeah, I'm really pleased with how it looks, at least on the back of the screen here. And what I'm thinking is the same that I did with the last image, is that I'm going to capture another set of images right now, just because. So the battery died on me there, but what I was saying is that the light is ever changing in the landscape, and the way that I like to see light, or time actually, as this is that time is a tool of composition. It is something that you can use just by waiting. The light changes, thus it changes the way it interacts in the composition. Thus it actually changes the compositional elements within the scene. Light is one of the compositional elements, and time is a tool to alter that element. And the thing that actually happened for me here was that by using time, waiting, for me in this case it was as little as a couple of minutes, the shadows spread out a little bit more as the sun was kind of swinging around, and it also altered the way they were coming towards the camera. Thus, using that as a tool of composition, it altered one of the elements, the light, and it aligned the whole composition more towards the vision that I actually had, and it became a more wholesome, more integrated scene of what I was actually looking for. So having in mind the different tools of composition, how you can use them in order to alter the composition, is a really important thing to know. If you're not sure what I'm talking about when I'm talking about tools of composition, hit me up in the comments below and I'll try to make an explanation, perhaps make a whole video about the different tools of composition and how you can use them in order to get the compositions that you really want. There are a lot of different things like height and distance and things that alter the way the composition looks, basically. As I've said in previous videos, working on my compositional skill is the main thing that keeps me going with photography, actually. That and being outside. But exploring the compositional skills and just developing theories within that really just hits home with me, and I really enjoy doing that. Anyway, I think this composition turned out really good, and I'm really glad that I actually stopped to take it. I had my doubt about whether or not I should actually take out the camera, but then, you know, sometimes you just have to try and experiment even though you don't know that the composition is going to be as good as you think, or perhaps it's worse than you think, but sometimes you just have to try in order to know, and that's what I did here. The sun is getting pretty high in the sky. Of course, I just captured an image that I think I'm satisfied with, but giving it another 40 minutes, I think we've lost the best of the light. Then it's going to get pretty high in the sky, and I'm not going to get that nice directional light, and it's going to be even harsher. So I'm gonna have to hurry and see if I can find something more before it's too late, basically. This area looks very, very, very interesting. Lots of flowers, and it's the canopy in the background is a little bit thicker, so it's filtering through the light a bit more, making it a bit more dappled, which is interesting, not having sunlight everywhere but having spots, more spots of sunlight. But just the amount of flowers here is just astonishing, extremely beautiful. Not that easy to actually find something to frame up though. The thing is, I need something to stand out. I need a main element. Of course, in a sense, the flowers are the main element, but then I need an anchor element at least within the flowers in order to kind of put everything into context. And yeah, I think there's so many flowers that it's easily overwhelming the whole composition with it. What I'm looking for is just something to stand out, something different within the forest here to use as an anchor for a scene, for a composition. So I found a composition, and let me show you what I mean about finding an anchor, something for the scene. I just grabbed a focus shift, so focus bracket of the scene, since I'm at 70mm and the closest part here is just really close. But let me show you on video here what I'm talking about. So this is the composition. Obviously it's 16:9 and it's photographed in 3:2, so a little bit more on the bottom here. I included a bit more on the bottom of this stick. You can see that it's not showing all that well, but if I just zoom out a little bit, you can get more sense of the height. And remember the crop, it was on the sides to begin with. So this is coming in from the bottom right. It's I would call it a framing element. The same with these trees here and that tree there. Those are framing the scene, meaning that it's pushing towards the center from the sides and giving emphasis more towards the center of the composition, thus framing it within its boundaries. The sides of the composition, the sides of the frame are basically pushing toward inwards, making it a framing element. And then we have the lovely piece of light showing over these flowers, which is the main element of the scene. It's the main thing of it. And then what I thought was the anchor, the thing I was looking for, is the grouping of trees we have in the background there, or in the midground or the background, before the continuation of the forest behind it. And then we have a bit of the sky there as well. I've exposed everything kind of dark. The flowers are really getting a lot of light. They're being backlit, and yeah, that is basically what I meant by having. So the two things that helped in create a bit of order within the vast number of flowers is basically framing it, having these framing elements on the sides, and then having that piece of anchor in the background, giving it something a bit more powerful to help you move from the flowers onwards and onwards back yet again. So something of a bit more strength, basically. Otherwise it could easily have been that the flowers were just everything within the scene, but the way that it's composed now, I think it's more wholesome. It makes you travel through the whole composition. The visual flow becomes more interesting, since you're going to get drawn immediately towards the brightest part there, but then also want to continue upwards and see a little bit of the background and see how this is a part of a bigger picture, the bigger forest, and it's just basically a well, it was almost like a glade in the foreground there, where the flowers are just showing and getting all that light. So I really like that composition. I think it turned out really well. As I said, the sun is getting harder and harder to work with as it's getting higher up in the sky. I think I'm almost back towards the car, and when I think I'm gonna call it done for the day. I've captured quite a few interesting images. I really want to look at them at a bigger screen and get my teeth into them, really start to edit them properly and get everything together. What a lovely day, what a lovely day indeed. So this video is coming towards an end here, but in this area where I am right now, I wanted to show you the difference between different types of light. So what I have here is in that direction I have a backlit, and that direction I have a front lit, and then I have two side lit directions when it comes to these flowers. And I want to show you the difference and how the one thing is creating more illumination within the flowers, creating a lot more interest, and the other direction is more making it more flat and less interesting. And then we have the side direction, which is a bit more of a mix between the two, which is still interesting, but depending on the angle, the light is very different. So I want to show you a little bit of the difference within different angles of the light towards the sun and how it plays in the landscape and how you can use different things. So let me show you. So in this direction we have the backlit, and if you can see in the flowers here, they are standing out quite a lot from its surroundings, and you can see them pretty clearly. If we turn all the way around, you can see how everything is getting lit, and even though we can still see the flowers, they are not popping out but more melting into everything else that is going on around it. And with the side lit, you can see we get a little bit of both, and depending on how wide an angle you're using, on this side you can see they're starting to melt more towards in to the landscape, and on this side they're standing out a bit more. But the nice thing with side lit, I would say, is the play with the shadows. And often trees are very good when the light is side lit. You're getting nice definition on the sides of every tree, and they're standing out good, it makes them stand out in a good way towards or from their surroundings. So backlit, I like backlit most for the flowers, actually. You can see how it just makes them pop out from the grass. And I like side lit for the trees, and then front lit basically becomes a little bit too flat for anything. But it creates a more even illumination, so it's easier to work with in terms of luminosity. But then again, luminosity or dynamic range isn't really that big of an issue nowadays. And then here we also have side lit, and then again backlit. I just found it really interesting to have everything in one small little location like this, just as I'm turning around and you get a bit of everything. Interesting, and hope well, at least I found that pretty interesting, and I hope you got something out of it in how different lights works on the landscape and on different type of things. Yeah, so might as well say goodbye here. I'm not going to find anything else. I'm real close to the parking lot now. So thank you all so much for watching. If you found this video useful, give it a like, share it to someone who would find it useful as well. Remember to subscribe in order to stay tuned for more, and well, I'll see you all soon again. Until next time, goodbye.